All right, if you struggle with confidence and you think that it's a feeling you got to be born with, you need to stick around because I'm going to prove you wrong. This is me when I was 19 years old and I had 2 kids that were under the age of 3. I felt hopeless, I felt alone, and I had absolutely zero confidence. If I can go from helpless teen mom to boss bitch, so can you, and stick around because we're going to talk about the exact things I had to overcome in order to get where I am today. Now, I am not going to hand you some feel-good tips. I'm going to be straight with you in this video because I feel like y'all need to hear it. It's going to be raw truth. I'm going to share some of my own personal stories and lots of lessons that I've learned, not only from my stories, but from my clients as well. My name is Diane Flores, and if you're new here, welcome. Hopefully you stick around. I would love to have you as a subscriber. And if you are currently a subscriber, thanks for subbing. I appreciate you. Now, if you're saying you want confidence, let's talk about that, right? I want to be more confident. Diane, how do I become more confident? You're so confident. You're so brave. The first thing I'm going to ask you is, what are your habits? What are you doing? What is your day-to-day? What kind of person have you become because of the habits that you keep? Now, hear me out, because I'm going to be telling y'all some things you probably don't want to hear, but I try to deliver news to people in a way that is relatable to stories because I've experienced them. And also, a lot of times getting real, because I say this to myself, oftentimes need to hear something even though you don't want to hear it. And we need to be called out on this shit. And I appreciate the real ones out there who don't have a problem calling me on my shit. All right, you know who you are. And one of the key things that I really suggest if you struggle with feeling confident in yourself is being disciplined in the art of looking fear in the face. Hello, my good friend, fear. And immediately knowing that the old you is going to give you reasons why you should not do things. You're going to have a whole conversation with yourself in your head. You're probably going to have some visceral reactions because the thought of doing things that are out of our comfort zone sometimes causes a physical reaction. And the thing you have to do is be disciplined to just say, I know this feeling. It comes up every time I want to do something, and I make this thing more grandiose than it needs to be. And when I'm done with it, I'm always better for it, or I feel glad that I did, or I feel more confident, or I put one more rep in doing something that is scary. And the more that you do that, the discipline of reminding yourself every time you go to move a different direction in a choice, because you fear being uncomfortable, you are voting for a person who is not trying to put themselves out there and be better. So my question to you is, I want you to think about putting yourself in uncomfortable positions. When is the last time that you did that? When's the last time you stepped outside of your comfort zone? If you are too busy staying in that comfortable zone, then it's no wonder you're not feeling confident. You aren't being challenged outside of your normal, everyday experiences. So challenge yourself by making sure that when you are faced with a difficult decision, or you are thinking and ruminating on who you want to be and what you want for yourself, but you're not actually taking the actions, you need to put wheels in motion and tip the first domino and take a baby step towards that direction. Now, in my journey into becoming an IFBB professional and to becoming the boss bitch to running my own personal training studio, all of these things had to be built up over time. And I had to put myself out there and realize that it was going to be scary. Now, if you've been here with me for a minute, I resonate with being a introvert through and through. That is just how I associate in the world. And that's how I move through the world. And it has impeded me in a lot of ways earlier on in like my early 20s, definitely in my teens, but mostly in my 20s and honestly in most of my 30s. And when I started competing, I realized that was probably one of the hardest things I'd ever done. is getting on a bodybuilding stage. Now, the first time, it was a honeymoon phase for me in my bodybuilding career, right? It was my first show, it was my first experience, and I wish I could go back knowing what I know now. But the lessons I learned through my bodybuilding journey are how I have built a lot of my confidence. Earlier on, before that, I was doing sensual movement and teaching pole dance and doing all these things. And I had an entire business around that and online courses. And that it was putting myself in a very vulnerable state in front of other people to judge me, right? Like online and here on YouTube. If you scroll back, there's tons of pole dance videos here on my account that will live there because it's part of my story. And I have taken every step one at a time. And like, I'm going to be 100 with you guys here. Getting myself to sit down and even record this video was a lot of talk in my head, right? So it still comes up for me, especially when I take longer and longer in between times of doing things that push me outside of my comfort zone. So the more you do it, the more frequent you do it, the more that you experiment with doing different things and letting yourself be new at something or uncomfortable or doing it even if it's going to fail and what's not going to be your best, it builds confidence. That is a huge piece of building confidence. The next step is you need to define who you want to be. This is super important. Now, all these years ago, I didn't know who I wanted to be. I knew even before I got pregnant with my son that I was meant for something bigger. And I didn't know what that was. I couldn't articulate it. We didn't have the resources that we do now, clearly, to help us in figuring out what we want to do with our lives. What mark do we want to leave on the world? No way of knowing that. But I knew that I was meant for something greater. When I got pregnant, that feeling never changed. I knew that the odds were stacked against me because I had put myself in a situation that was going to make everything exponentially more challenging just by the nature of having one person to look out for, let alone two. So the odds were stacked against me immediately from the jump. I went from being a child to a teen who is still technically a child raising babies. I'll never forget, between the two of these being born, I actually got really sick. I had my son and I got really sick and I had a lot of digestive issues. I was not a healthy eater at all. I was eating loads of fast food and I just grew up unhealthy in terms of what we were eating. It was just a lot of packaged foods. I didn't have a primary care doctor. Okay. I had just had my son. I was 17-ish, close to 18. And here I am having issues with my stomach and I'm going to the pediatrician. Let that sink in for you. Okay. Then I had my daughter. So I'm going to the pediatrician with my son in his carrier. Okay. And I'm sure the people in the waiting room thought I was there with my son for his appointment to see the pediatrician. But no, I was indeed there for myself. So just to give you an idea of odds are stacked against this bitch. Now, in order for me to make changes throughout my life, as I moved into young adulthood and I started getting jobs and things of that nature, which I talked about in another video, I had to envision what it is that I wanted, who I wanted to emulate or who I looked up to. Now, when it comes to health and fitness, I had one very specific person that I would oftentimes refer back to. And it was Aaron Stern. And then there was another figure competitor at the time, Mari Kudla. And I just thought that they were just amazing, right? These were the two first women that really were impactful in my fitness journey early on and wanting to make my foray into bodybuilding. Now, when I was envisioning competing, I knew that in order for me to get on that stage and really own it, I had to pretend I was somebody else. Because if I was acting like me, no, we want to throw a blanket on and go sit in the audience and hide our body. So I needed to really put my mind in that of somebody who was already accomplished at the thing I wanted to accomplish. So tying this all together, what would a figure competitor do? And that is how I started acting. That's how I started behaving. The next thing is stacking small wins for a major confidence boost. Now, let me explain. Confidence doesn't arrive because you've done one thing, right? It's not one rep, you nailed it, you did it, great, I felt confident about that thing, and then that confidence just carries you through the rest of your life. In fact, it's quite the opposite. It's almost as if the more that you challenge yourself, then when you're faced with other opportunities, you realize, because you're aware of the confidence that you have built doing other hard things, is that when new things come your way, you realize how much more you still have to tackle to feel confident in many different areas. And so when it comes to stacking small wins, you need to think about it in terms of the different areas of your life. That's one way to think about it, right? In your workplace, how can you build more confidence in your workplace, in your relationship, in your friendships, in whatever the work is that you do in the world? How can you come out and be more confident? So think about the areas of your life. Where are you not showing up fully as yourself and in doing things that are outside of your comfort zone? And how can you start making little deposits, or making, for reference for weight training, getting more reps of practicing things that are outside of your comfort zone so you can build confidence in those areas? It's small wins over time that then leave evidence to your brain of, oh, okay, well, I can do this because I've already done these hard things. And our brain is like, oh, you didn't die. Okay, we're good. So it then gives you that next little bit of a power boost to say, okay, I can do this. I've done hard things before, and I have this evidence that I have, and I can do this, and it can bolster your confidence even more. So think about any of those small, consistent habits that you have that have built confidence in certain areas for you. I know a lot of women come to us and they start the new habit of exercising, hands down. And I always like to start with that because that's an easy win, right? Like one day of dieting, you're not going to wake up and, notice things dramatically. It's the same thing with working out, but working out gives you a bit of a return on your investment in other ways, where dieting does too, but exercise is more immediate and it's more noticeable. And that is going to be generally the immediate endorphin rush that you get, the strength that you feel, the adrenaline, all of the physical things that you feel, even if it was difficult and you struggled, right? Exercise does something to your physiology. And when you could start pushing through, because exercise is hard just by the nature of what it is, especially if you have not exercised in a while, it's telling your brain that you're pushing yourself up against something that's hard, resistance, and you're getting through it. It's giving you a reward at the end, boost in energy, boost in mood, clarity, all these things, lifts sadness and blues, usually helps combat that. And brain says, we like this. Okay, this is good. Give us more. It's a little bit of a rush. And when you can start depositing those in regularly, you're going to build confidence in your physical abilities, in your body, and how you show up more confident. You stand taller. You're more proud. You're accomplishing something that's difficult in your day. As humans need that sort of engagement with our bodies. The next layer of building confidence is celebrating your wins along the way. Now, I know that this is a challenging one. This is one that I struggle with often, but listen, taking the time to pause and reflect on the things that you have done is so rewarding, and it's also a challenge. Now, what I don't want you to get wrapped up in is when you accomplish something, don't do what I do, okay, or what I have done in the past, is I accomplish the thing and then I go, okay, next. And it's literally right on to the next thing. And this is how I did 16 shows. I became an IFBB pro. And also, I'm going to be real. I was putting my office together last week and we had some friends come out, and Kelly Han, who's actually one of our amazing clients at the studio, is a friend of mine. He came out. She asked if I needed anything brought from California because I live in Vegas now. And I said, I'm putting together finally my dream of having my little boss bitch office. And I feel like, as cheesy as this sounds, it just felt like really weird and cheesy, but I thought I would like to display my trophies. So she brought half of them, but nonetheless, while I was setting them up and getting them ready and all arranged and whatnot, and blowing the dust off of them, and I'm looking at each one and I'm remembering each single contest because they all stand out very vividly to me. Every contest has a different theme in my brain. They were all very different. There were different periods of my life. I remember the suits. I remember what I was going through in my life at the time. And bodybuilding and competing got me through a lot of that, right? So I've never really sat back and thought like, damn, girl, like you thought about this thing, like competing and all that. How many years ago? This was probably 1997-ish, 98, when I started to see things about competitions and female competitors and things. And as soon as I remember seeing the very first magazine was, I believe it was a Muscle and Fitness or an Oxygen magazine. And I saw, I believe her name is Mari Kudla, and she had curly hair and she was a figure competitor. And she's just this beautiful, like gorgeous woman. And I saw her and I thought, I don't know how that girl looks like that, but I want to look like that, which eventually turned into, I don't know how these girls compete, but I want to compete. And then it just continued to morph. I don't know how this girl got first place, but I want to get first place. What do I need to do, right? Level up, hire the right coaches, change my posing, do all these things, okay? Then I really want to be an IFBB pro. How do I do that? What do they need? What do they do? How do I do that? What do I need to do? Hired an Olympian that was on stage winning Olympias, hired her coach. All this to say, don't let it pass you by. You have to look at each individual win, celebrate the success around that, because that's part of your journey. That's part of mapping out where the rest of your future is going to go based off your experiences and how confident you feel with taking risks. Now, we've talked about needing to define who you are, get comfortable with being uncomfortable, celebrating your small successes, taking up space, being authentically you. Now, the next thing we're going to talk about is not comparing yourself to others, rather celebrating them. This is a challenging one, and I've seen it time and time again, working with women and the comparison trap, and especially with competitors. I've been guilty of it myself. And probably halfway through my competitive career, if you will, before I even became an IFBB pro, I remember how I was comparing myself to other competitors before my foot had even hit the stage. Girls that weren't even going to be competing against me, girls in other states, girls that were pros, all of these things, and all the voices in my head that kept telling me, oh, you're not big enough, you're not muscular enough, you're never going to get that lean, who do you think you are, right? All this negative self-talk, and thinking, oh my gosh, her legs are so much better than mine, and oh, but she's never had children, so she doesn't have stretch marks, and I'd be comparing, and what does that do? That does nothing for you. That does nothing productive for you at all. It reduces your drive to do things that are outside of your comfort zone because you think that the way that you do it is not going to be as good as others. And that is where people have their cemetery of dreams and goals and aspirations that is overflowing because they worry that somebody else has already done it. Somebody else has done it better than them. They're too far behind. This is one that I get really fired up about because I often tell people I was meant to start a podcast in probably 2015, 2016. That was around the time when I started really getting into audiobooks and podcasts and things of that nature. And I really felt like I wanted to have a platform on a podcast and just share my experiences to that point, having been in fitness and owning a business. And also at that point, I was already competing, right? I had done probably about 6 shows by that time, but I didn't because I compared myself to Amy Porterfield, Marie Forleo, like these women that have these big giant brands, and they weren't even in fitness brands, they're business brands, but these were the businesses and the mentors and the things that I was listening to at the time. And I was comparing myself to them, and it stopped me from starting my podcast. Now, I didn't have the discernment, but I'm going to give it to you now for you, if you don't already have it. But I didn't have the discernment back then to think to myself, or at least to get past it, okay, dodo brain, why am I comparing my day 1 to their day like 12,000? They had already been doing it for years. They had been making content for years. Like Marie Forleo is probably one of the first people I remember just binging on YouTube, right? Go check her out. She's got B School. I did B School many years ago, but she's an amazing creator, like works with Oprah now and shit, right? Like back then, she was not nearly as big as she is now. And I'm comparing myself to Marie Forleo. Marie Forleo's already Marie Forleo at that point. Okay. So the point is, I put my dream off for way too long because I was comparing myself to other people. I always like to give this analogy because I believe I heard it somewhere else, where think about your favorite artist, okay? And I like to use, and she might not be your cup of tea, but I like to use Lady Gaga as an example because she's very eclectic. She serves a very unique music audience, right? Like you have to just, you either love her or you hate her, right? Imagine if you're a Lady Gaga fan, if she decided, I can't make music because there's already too many musicians out here. And why am I going to do that? Who's going to listen to me? Imagine if everybody's favorite musical artist, favorite actor, favorite whatever, decided at the time that they wanted to do that thing that, why should I do this thing? Why me? Who cares what? I'm not special. They have a talent. You probably have a talent. You probably have something inside of you that needs to make its mark on the world. And if it's not on the world, it's on your life. And I'm calling you out. I'm here to call you out. It's time. And the last tip, but probably the most important, is letting go of perfectionism, which ties very heavily into the previous tip, because those two go hand in hand. If you are comparing yourself to others and assuming that they're perfection, you're comparing yourself and you're also waiting until you're perfect to start doing things and making moves and taking action. You're prolonging not only gaining confidence, but getting closer and closer to the life that you want to live, which is an authentic one of your dreams. Now, I'm guilty of it. Let me tell you, okay? Let me tell you, girl is guilty. There are still moments when I want to record a video or I want to record a podcast, but the conditions aren't perfect, so I don't do it, right? Like it's at the end of the day, I don't have the right lighting, my hair is dirty, it's a mess, I don't feel polished, too much effort to do the thing. That is fear. That is fear wrapped in a pretty little bow. Okay, so waiting for perfectionism. I see this time and time again. I work with a lot of high-level women, high-level entrepreneurs, business women specifically. And I see this and it shows up as, oh, I can't do this thing. I got to take one more course. I can't start this business. I can't start this idea or this passion or share it with the world because it's not perfect yet. I got to take one more course. I got to be a little more of an expert. Nope. Feel the fear and do it anyways. Get your shitty first draft out there. Throw spaghetti at the wall. See what sticks. You don't know. You don't know what you don't know. And as you start putting yourself out there and start worrying less about perfection and things looking perfect and showing up perfect for every scenario, you will build those reps and knowing that you can do hard things and you will be okay and you will be stronger for it. And it will build a foundation for lasting confidence and also a resilience when you do things and they don't end up like you anticipated, or it ends up feeling like a failure. Rather than it kicking you off your momentum, it just becomes a learning lesson. Confidence is doing the damn thing anyways, in spite of fear. Feel the fear and do it anyways. That is the takeaway here for today's video. All right, you guys, it's been real. It's been real. And hopefully you enjoyed this episode. Now, question for you. What do you need to start doing today to help improve your confidence? Or what do you need to stop doing? It might be the better question. So next time you feel like saying, I'm not ready, just remember, confidence is on the other side of that. It is just one step away. And lastly, if you want more no BS approach to women and mindset and goals and all the things, you got to check this video out here, which is one of my latest videos on brutal truth that women over 40 need to hear. So check it out and I'll see y'all in the next video. Oh my God, I don't even feel like myself.
Maybe I just need to like. So this should be great. Can't wait. Can't wait to see what comes out of my mouth. I cannot not have the biggest hair on the internet, okay? We have to have the biggest hair. The biggest hair. It'll get bigger as the day goes on, but. Okay, well, this was too much talking, but we did it.